All right, so I wanted to do a mobility video today. I've been focusing on mobility for the last many months, and I'm no specimen of mobility, but for a guy that's beat himself up with a lot of powerlifting and half marathons and triathlons and stuff like that, I found I'm very tight and it kind of limits what I can do. And so I've really been focusing on this. It's made a big difference in my life in terms of my hip mobility, shoulder mobility. And I've taken some different lifters through this and they've said, wow, man, this series really helps me out. It's pretty simple. And I've taken a lot of this from like Original Strength, GMB Fitness, and some FMS stuff that I've learned over the years and kind of made a mashup and put them in an order that I feel really allows me to kind of open up my body and release things. I spend sometimes a minute on each of these stretches or each of these movements. Today I might cut some short just for the time of the video, but it'll give you a good sense to follow along and learn some of this stuff, that see if it helps you open up in a way that's not going to over push your body too much. All right, so I also start usually with some diaphragmatic breathing, which I'm not going to start with in this video. Pretty much lying on my back, breathing into my belly. If you look up Original Strength, has some really good videos on that, and I'll start with 2 to 3 minutes of diaphragmatic breathing before I start this, which is a good starting point. All right, so I start with some basic rocking. I get my feet and my hips about shoulder width, and maybe a little bit outside of my shoulder width actually. My hands are slightly in front of my shoulders, and I'm just gonna rock back and forth. You can either be on the top of your feet or have your toes curled in. You don't wanna feel any pain with this. And so you wanna not feel any huge stretching. You also don't wanna be like cranking on your lower spine. Just hips back into a squat almost, and then getting forward. Very gentle movement. And you should be breathing the entire time, not really working overly hard. You shouldn't feel a huge stretch. We're just kind of keeping the muscles loose in our hips and kind of shaking them loose from our hips. All right, then I'm gonna go into an adductor stretch. So I'm gonna come back, I'm gonna bring one leg out to the side, and I'm just, and again, gonna rock really gently. And sometimes I will feel a nice stretch on the inside of this thigh. You don't wanna like necessarily push a really intense stretch. That's not the point of this. Again, we're just trying to loosen up those muscles to kind of relax around the hip. If you wanna hold it a little bit, you can, and just do some breathing through your nose. But don't try and like beast mode a stretch right now, okay? That's not the point of this. Switch legs, you might notice a difference from side to side, one adductor being a little more stubborn than the other. Sometimes I will hold it at the bottom. I'm finding a relaxing stretch. Try and keep my head up. Now, this is one of my favorite stretches where I start kind of getting into my lats. And I like releasing my lats, especially if you're doing a lot of lifting, your lats are gonna be tight. So I try to release my lats and then I go into my hips because the lats attach to your hips. So I find that kind of releasing my lats a little bit will help. So I'll start, my hands out in front of me, in front of my face. You can kind of bring them out as much as you want. I'll bring my hand just to the center. So I'm bringing my right hand to the left of center, and I'm just gonna do some rocks to the side, like pushing my hips back and kind of leaning to the side. And I'll do about 10 of these rocks. And then I'm just gonna hold for like 15 to 30 seconds. I'm gonna switch sides, move my left hand to the right of center, and do the same thing. And I'm gonna hold for 15 to 30 seconds. And this whole time, I'm breathing through my nose. Like I said, on a side that's a little tighter, I'll do 2 sets on each side, and I'll hold for 30 seconds to a minute in those long hold stretches. And you'll feel that stretch in your armpit, you'll feel it in your lat sometimes, or you'll feel it all the way down in the back of your hip. So after the lat stretch, I go into like this modified pigeon. So I'm gonna bend this leg, I'm gonna bend this leg behind me. And I like doing this stretch, I add a little bit of a lat component to it. So I just kind of will angle my body over this knee or over this thigh. And I'll kind of do some like almost push-ups. And I'll feel this kind of light stretch throughout my whole lower back and kind of pulling up my spine and up my sides. And then what I like to do is I'll bend one arm here. I'll take this arm on the leg that's back and I'm gonna reach out. And I'll just rock a little bit. And I really try and reach this arm out. And then I'll just hold for about 30 seconds or 15 to 30 seconds. Again, for the sake of this video, I'm not gonna hold as long as I might. And then switch sides. Again, breathe through your nose, relaxing breaths the entire time. Come down, reach. I really feel this through my QL, my quadratus lumborum muscle that attaches my kind of spine to my hip. I feel a nice stretch. I'm pretty tight there, so I feel a really nice stretch there, and I'm just gonna reach and get into this right lat. So now that I got my lats kind of released up, I'm gonna go into some spinal rotation movements. So what I'll do with this one is I'm on all fours. I'm gonna bring one hand behind my back. So I'll see how far I can put it into my lower back. This arm can kind of go back pretty far. My other arm doesn't go as far. And I'm gonna push that wrist into my lower back. I'm gonna take this hand, I'm gonna push into the ground, elongating. I'm gonna rotate down. Then I'm gonna open up from my elbow to my shoulder and rotate. Make sure I'm breathing. Leading with the elbow, then the shoulder. And I'm not trying to force anything. Now hold this last one for 15 seconds or so. Breathing. And I'll do multiple sets of that on each side. Switch arms. This arm's getting better, but still not as good as my other side. This side. I'm trying to open up my thoracic cage. So I'm really trying to lead. I'm driving this hand into the ground. Leading with this elbow on the right side. Relax. Got some good little pops in my back. Then I'm going to go into windshield wipers. Windshield wipers, I'm going to lie on my back, keeping my shoulders down on the ground like this. Okay. Now my shoulders are going to stay on the ground. My head's going to be relaxed, and I'm going to rotate my torso from side to side. The one thing I don't want to do is if I start rotating these hips and the shoulder pops up, I stop rotating my hips. Sometimes I'll just breathe at the end range and relax. So shoulders have to stay down. I'm gonna let my hips rotate while keeping the shoulders on the turf, and go the other way. With this one, I'll make sure I'm breathing, I'm relaxing. Sometimes I feel it kind of tight. I'll just let my legs kind of hold there and just practice breathing, and I'll start to see my legs my lower back start to relax. And then I'll just finish up with this like hip flexor torso stretch. I forget what it's called. So I'm gonna go here. This leg is going to be back behind me, and I'm going to keep it straight and locked out. I'm going to reach up and then come down through. And open up from my chest, my torso, and come down. And I'm just going to hold. After about 5 to 10 rotations, I'm just going to hold. Open up my chest, pushing this palm into the ground. And then switch. I'll show you what it looks like from the side. So I try to keep this back leg straight and my glute engaged, my butt cheek engaged on that side, so I can feel a good hip flexor stretch. So that's a little short circuit that I do. Again, sometimes I'll do 2 sets of each of these, really breathing into it depending on how I am. Again, I still have a lot of work to do, but it's really opened up my body a lot, and I've been feeling a ton better, especially if you spend a lot of time lifting weights. Going through this series and practicing it almost daily is really gonna help you out. And so I just found it helped myself and a lot of our lifters out. So follow along with it. If you have any questions, happy to kind of answer them for you. A lot of really great resources if you're looking to go deeper into this that I can kind of refer you to. But mobility is the key to more strength and more endurance, especially if you're not focusing on it. Lack of mobility will hold you back in just about everything. So pushing harder in your sport or pushing harder with the weights, if you don't have a good mobility foundation, is just going to be detrimental, and you're not going to see the full gains that you really want to. All right? That's all I got today.